The courtroom was packed, cameras rolled, reporters whispered behind their laptops, already half right in their headlines. Jasmine Crockett stood at the center of it all, steady, in a deep blue suit that seemed to match her mood. She had been through worse. Or so she thought. Justice Franklin Roberts sat high above, his face cold like stone. His voice cut through the silence. This court finds Representative Jasmine Crockett's recent conduct unfit for public office. For a moment, no one moved. No papers rustled. No cameras clicked. It was as if time froze. Jasmine did not flinch. Her eyes met the judge's with quiet force. She slowly folded her hands in front of her, then rose. Her chair creaked slightly. The only sound in the room. She took a breath, adjusted the mic, and spoke not with anger, but with power. "Unfit," she said calmly. "Let's talk about what that word means and who gets to use it." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Every word struck the room like a bell. She didn't defend herself at first. She asked questions. She challenged the meaning behind the word unfit. Was it about politics, ethics, or was it something else? Race, gender, fear? Then she began to speak of her work, the laws she had helped pass, the lives she had touched. Her background as a civil rights attorney, her work in communities forgotten by most lawmakers. Her voice stayed soft, but it never wavered. "I grew up in a place where being seen as unfit meant you were smart, loud, different, dangerous. I'm proud to be all those things." The courtroom sat frozen. Even Roberts, who was known for his strict, no-emotion style, looked uneasy. By the time she finished, no one could move. It was something more, something raw, elegant, true. The clip of her response went viral within hours. Social media flooded with support. Hashtag Jasmine Unbreakable began trending. News outlets ran her full statement live on repeat. She had turned an insult into a moment of national reckoning. But just as the cameras turned away, something strange happened. 48 hours later, Jasmine stopped giving interviews. She canceled press appearances. Her office gave no reason. Her social media went quiet. That same night, she received a message through a secure drop system only known to a few whistleblowers. It was anonymous. No sender, no name. Just a file. Colfax, witness dossier. She opened it. Password protected. She cracked the code using her late father's birthday. Guess that somehow worked. Inside were court transcripts, private emails, and a photo of a trial held in Nigeria. Dated 2007, at the center was an American oil executive, a Nigerian judge, and shockingly a young Franklin Roberts in the background. There were conversations about payouts, shady legal deals, and the suppression of a civil rights activist whose name she had never heard before. One email simply read, "Keep this buried. The Hill cannot afford another Nomura." Jasmine stared at the screen. Her hands were steady, but her heart raced. What was Colfax? Who sent it? Why now? Suddenly, the courtroom insult felt different. It wasn't just personal. It was a message, a warning, or a distraction. She knew then she had touched something bigger, something buried, something they didn't want out. And now someone wanted her to dig. For the next 5 days, Jasmine Crockett disappeared. Not a single post. Not a single public appearance. Her aides gave rehearsed lines to reporters. She's resting. She's focusing on policy. But the truth was locked behind a darkened door inside her Washington apartment, where only one thing played on a loop: the Colfax dossier. She read it over and over. Every time a new line jumped out. Nigeria. A private tribunal. An oil deal that went bad. Witnesses disappeared. And Franklin Roberts then just a legal attach listed in the footnotes of a classified U.S. intelligence memo. It was never meant to be found. Jasmine sat hunched on her couch, her phone dark beside her. She hadn't spoken to anyone except her friend and journalist, Gita Lau, who answered on the second ring. "Someone wants me to see this, Gita," Jasmine whispered. "Then someone wants something exposed," Gita replied. "But they're making you walk through fire to do it." Gita was no stranger to dangerous truths. She'd reported from Ukraine, Syria, Venezuela. She knew when something was more than political, when it was structural. Jasmine trusted her with one copy of the file encrypted, burned to a secure drive. Nothing went to cloud. Nothing touched. Email. By the weekend, Jasmine was on a train to New York. Quietly, no security detail. She wore a hooded coat, sunglasses, and moved like someone who knew she was being watched. She met Gita in the back of a bookstore cafe in Brooklyn. Rain tapped softly against the window. The folder sat between them on a wooden table. "You know what Colfax is?" Gita asked. Jasmine shook her head. "It's mentioned only twice. Once as a location, once as a code name." "I found a reference to it," Gita said, opening a battered notebook. Colfax was the name of an off-book CIA observation site in northern Africa. It was shut down in 2008. Officially, never existed. But I think this trial had happened near there. Under their eye, Jasmine exhaled slowly, and Roberts covered it up, or worse, helped design it. This wasn't about a bribe. It was about killing a movement. The witness Nomoroshi had evidence of human rights violations tied to an American defense contractor. She vanished 2 weeks after testifying. Jasmine sat still, letting it sink in. Then she asked quietly, "Why now? Why bring this to me?" Gita stared at her. "Because you're the only one who just stood up to him. On record. On live TV, someone saw that and handed you a live grenade." Jasmine's jaw clenched. "Then I have to throw it." "But it wouldn't be that simple, because someone else knew she had the file." That night, her apartment was broken into. Nothing taken except the flash drive. They left her computer, her passport, even her jewelry. Just the drive was gone. She received no threats, no warning. But in her mailbox the next morning was a single folded note. "Leave the past buried or join it." Jasmine stared at it. For a second, her hands trembled. But then she opened her phone and recorded a voice message to whoever's listening. She said, "You made a mistake. You think this will scare me? 'Twon't. It only means I'm closer than anyone's been in years. Then if I go, Silent Gita has a copy." She hit send. Not to a friend. Not to a politician, but to a public news drop used by human rights networks. The note was a threat. Her response, a trigger. By evening, a leak appeared on the encrypted message board Globinet. Just one photo, Jasmine standing in court, fire in her eyes beside the text. She has the file. She knows about Colfax. The story was moving faster than she expected, and far beyond her control. Gita Lau didn't sleep that night. She sat hunched in her tiny Manhattan apartment, headphones on, eyes scanning encrypted threads, burner messages, offshore file mirrors. Every hour a new upload, a screenshot, a voice clip. Someone or some group was helping Jasmine Crockett, spreading pieces of the Colfax dossier like breadcrumbs. But with every drop, the risk grew. By sunrise, a second name from the Nigeria Tribunal leaked. Charles Ventimiglia, a retired U.S. diplomat, once rumored to be involved in African pipeline negotiations. His name had vanished from news reports years ago. Now it was front and center, and by noon he was found dead in his Virginia home. Heart failure, the report said. Gita didn't buy it. She called Jasmine immediately. The line crackled before connecting. "You've seen the news," Gita said without waiting. Jasmine's voice was low, cold. "They're erasing the trail." "That means you're right," Gita snapped. "You're close." "I need to get out of D.C., Jasmine said. "They're watching me. Cars parked too long. Calls not connecting. Even my aides acting strange." "Come here," Geeta said, "but bring nothing digital. We'll rebuild what they stole." Jasmine was on a bus 3 hours later. She wore no makeup, no ID on her. Only a stack of printed documents in a worn manila folder. When she reached the city, Geeta was waiting 2 blocks from the station under an umbrella, as if they were in some noir film neither of them wanted to be in. Inside Geeta's apartment, Jasmine laid the folder on the floor. These are copies of the tribunal's classified witness entries. Most names are redacted, but I matched 3 signatures to a peacekeeping NGO database. One of them no more testified that Roberts had ordered the sanctioning of rebel leaders who were actually American business informants. Meaning, Geeta whispered, the violence wasn't just political, it was strategic. Jasmine nodded. Engineered to look like chaos. But it was cleanup. Corporate cleanup. She opened another document. Ah. And this? This is an email chain from 2007 between U.S. officials and a European energy board. There's a mention of a media suppression directive, Operation Echo. Well, she looked up. It's the only journalist who reported from that region at the time, Leon Marshing. It's listed as compromised. 1 month later, he was found dead, ruled a suicide. Geeta's stomach dropped. They killed him, she whispered. Jasmine's eyes were tired but steady. Now they're trying to kill the story again. At that exact moment, Geeta's laptop blinked. New email. No sender. No subject. Just one file. They know. Avi. Geeta hesitated, then clicked. A grainy video loaded. Low resolution. A dusty room. A woman, mid-30s, speaking directly to the camera, Nigerian accent. English words broken but forceful. I testified against American deal. I told tribunal Roberts gave order. I was told to leave country. Then my brother was taken. I never saw him again. The video ended. Time-stamped June 2007. There was silence in the room. Geeta stood up, locked the door, and pulled the blinds shut. They're not just burying evidence, she said. They buried people. Jasmine closed the folder. Then it's our turn, she said. We dig them back up. They created a plan. No direct upload. They'd stage a controlled leak, slowly, fact by fact, document by document, across independent press networks. Using verified journalists outside the U.S. legal jurisdiction, Latin America, Eastern Europe, South Africa, each release would lead with one simple question. Why did the U.S. silence its own witness in Nigeria, 2007? But before the first drop could go live, someone knocked on Geeta's door. 3 times. Slow, measured. Geeta signaled Jasmine to back away. She approached the door silently, her phone ready to call for help. Then a voice through the door. Male American accent, Congresswoman Crockett. We need you to come with us. It's urgent. It's about Colfax. They froze. No ID, no names. Just that one word, Colfax. Jasmine looked at Geeta. Her heart was racing. She whispered, How? Did they find me? Geeta whispered back. They never lost you. Now, they had a decision. Open the door and face what was next, or run before the door broke open. Either way, the next move would change everything. Jasmine didn't move. Neither did Geeta. The man outside the door waited. Then came a second voice. This one softer, almost rehearsed. You're not safe here. They've activated a rollback. You know what that means? Geeta stepped back from the door. I've heard that phrase before, she whispered. Rollback. It's intelligence language. For cover-up. Eyes narrowed. CIA. Geeta shook her head. Or worse. Contractors, the kind that don't exist on paper. The knocking stopped. Moments later, they heard a door down the hall creak open. Then silence. Then fast footsteps. Whoever was out there, they were trying to flush them out. Maybe waiting for them to panic. But Jasmine Crockett didn't panic. She picked up the Colfax folder and grabbed Geeta's hand. We go now. Back way, Geeta nodded. They left. Through the fire escape. Cold wind hit their faces as they climbed down 5 flights, feet barely making a sound. At the alley's end, a rideshare car was idling. Geeta had ordered it moments before they left under a fake name. They climbed in, not speaking. The driver didn't ask questions. He didn't even look in the mirror. Just drove. Oh, an hour. Later, they were across state lines at a safe house run by a retired international reporter Geeta once worked with in Cairo. A woman named Liana, tough and paranoid, who now lived off-grid in rural Pennsylvania. She served them hot tea and locked away all their devices. Then she pointed to a corkboard already filled with red lines and names. Jasmine stared at it. "You've been tracking Colfax?" Liana nodded. "Since 2015. My source was a whistleblower inside a military contractor. He went dark 3 years ago, but not before he gave me 2 names, Roberts and Ventimiglia." Jasmine looked stunned. They were both involved in the Nigerian tribunal. "You're saying this operation goes that far back?" Liana exhaled. "Further. Colfax isn't just about one tribunal. It's about how the U.S. government and private companies used post-conflict zones as testing grounds for deals. Surveillance, even misinformation campaigns." Geeta leaned forward. And now Jasmine's response in court has shaken that whole system. Liana nodded grimly, because she did it live. In front of the world, without permission. That wasn't just a political moment. It was a breach. Jasmine looked up. "So what do we do now?" Liana pointed to a storage case under her couch. Inside were 3 hard drives and a packet marked Echo Well sealed 2008. "You take this," Liana said. "You leak it in stages. Not through YouTube. Not Twitter. Those platforms are monitored. Use whistleblower nodes. European servers. Journalists you trust." Jasmine picked up one drive. It was heavier than she expected. "What's on this?" Liana hesitated. "Video evidence from Port Harcourt. Hidden recordings. If it's real. It confirms U.S. officials knew local witnesses were being eliminated. Not protected." Geeta's eyes went wide. "This is war crime territory." Jasmine held the drive close. She knew what this meant. This wasn't about clearing her name anymore. It was about exposing something that had been hidden for decades and doing it before someone else buried it all again. At dawn, Jasmine sat alone in Liana's attic. Her phone, turned off and dismantled, lay beside her. The folder was open in front of her. Photos, dates, initials, all dancing in her mind like ghosts. Then, out of the silence, came a thought she couldn't shake. Justice Roberts didn't call her unfit out of emotion. He was warned. He was making a public mark. A warning. Shot it had all been staged. Suddenly, Geeta burst into the attic. Liana just got a message from her dark channel contact. A third name from the 2007 trial just surfaced. Who? Geeta held out the paper. Jasmine took it, read it, and froze. General Ernest Maddox, former National Security Advisor, recently appointed to lead a secret AI-driven defense initiative called Atlas Protocol. Jasmine looked up. This, ... This is still happening. Geeta nodded. And now it's global. They were no longer uncovering the past. They were now racing against the future. The cold hit harder in Washington than Jasmine remembered. She kept her hood low, head down. It had been 4 days since she left Liana's safe house. Every major media outlet was still talking about her courtroom moment, but none knew where. She was, and that was the only reason she was still breathing. Now she was walking straight toward the heart of the machine, Capitol Hill. Geeta was already inside. They had decided on the plan 2 nights ago. It wasn't perfect, but it was all they had. The documents inside the Echo Well drive had confirmed everything. Port Harcourt, the bribed witnesses, the back-channel deals between energy companies, and us defense contractors, and most shocking, General Ernest Maddox had been on the ground in Nigeria before anyone knew he was even involved in African operations. The Echo Well materials tied Maddox to at least 4 disappearances. One of them was a journalist, Leon Marchang. That name hit Jasmine hard. Marchang had been investigating foreign intelligence training programs in conflict zones. Officially, his death in 2009 was ruled a suicide. But now, one of the videos on the drive showed him speaking with someone off camera the same day he supposedly died. He had said one thing that haunted Jasmine. If this reaches Capitol Hill, they'll say I imagined it, but it's all real. All of it. Now, Jasmine was about to walk into the one place where pretending something wasn't real had become a daily ritual. As she moved through security, she spotted Geeta near the committee chamber, pretending to scroll through her phone. Jasmine gave the signal a slow touch to her scarf, and Geeta moved. They had arranged a secret meeting with Senator Nina Morales, chair of the Classified Ethics Oversight Subcommittee. Morales was skeptical at first, but once Geeta had forwarded her one still image, General Maddox, shaking hands with a known arms dealer in an unofficial airfield near Lagos, the senator had agreed. It had to happen now, because tomorrow, Maddox was scheduled to address Congress about Project Atlas Protocol, the very defense initiative that could bury this all for good. Inside the closed-door room, Senator Morales greeted them stiffly. "We've got 15 minutes, that's all." Jasmine wasted no time. She slid the printed files across the table. Morales scanned the dates, the names, the sealed affidavits. Her expression changed. "This is bad," she said quietly. "Even half of this is real?" Geeta leaned forward. "It's real. And it's active. Atlas Protocol isn't just a defense system. It's a digital erasure machine. They're using AI to wipe testimony, edit historical media, replace public records," Jasmine added, "and they've already tested it abroad. What we saw in Nigeria, the blackouts, the fake court outcomes, that was a pilot." Morales looked overwhelmed, but focused. "You realize what this means? If you release this recklessly, you could trigger a diplomatic collapse. Countries will turn on each other. We're talking indictments of sitting officials." Jasmine's voice was calm. "Then let it happen." Morales looked at her. Really looked at her. For a long second, there was silence. Finally, she picked up a red phone, the encrypted line to the oversight office. "Give me confirmation on Project Atlas timelines," she said into the receiver. "And I need a fresh tap on General Maddox's briefing prep. Today, not tomorrow." She hung up. "All right," Morales said. "Here's what you're going to do. You're not going to leak this yet. You're going to come back tomorrow morning and testify privately. I'll lock it under executive privilege, but it will be on record." Geeta looked alarmed. "That's dangerous." The moment Maddox's people know she's testifying, Morales cut her off. "We'll have eyes, extra security, and if anything goes wrong, this goes to the press. Agreed?" Jasmine nodded slowly. Agreed. They left quietly. But across the street in a dark sedan with tinted windows, a man spoke into a headset. "She's here," he said. "The witness is engaging with Senate counsel." There was a pause, then a reply. "Proceed with soft containment. No public moves. We want her alive until Maddox speaks." The sedan pulled into traffic. Back inside her hotel, Jasmine stared at the printed photo of Leon Marchang. His eyes seemed to follow her. She thought of the young girl in Lagos who testified, then vanished. She thought of the court, the cameras, the moment she was called unfit. And then she smiled bitterly. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was unfit. Unfit to keep pretending. Unfit to stay silent. Because tomorrow, she was going to walk back into the building where power hid behind protocol and drop the truth like a match into gasoline. The Capitol was quiet at 6 a.m., the kind of quiet that didn't last long in Washington. Jasmine Crockett stood just outside the back entrance, her breath fogging in the cold morning air. Her bodyguard, a temporary assignment from Senator Morales' office, checked his watch, then gave her a nod. 2 minutes. She had barely slept. The documents from the Echo Well Drive were burned into her memory. The names, the hidden steals the faces of people who were never supposed to be seen again. But the image that wouldn't leave her was that of Leon Marshing. His final recorded words played over and over in her head. Truth needs a voice before it becomes an echo. Today, she was going to be that voice. Inside the secure hearing room was already set. Looked nothing like the dramatic committee chambers shown on cable news. No cameras, no rows of reporters. It's just dark wood, silence, and a handful of serious faces. Senator Morales was there, along with 3 members of the Oversight Subcommittee, all sworn to secrecy. Jasmine entered, calm but alert. She didn't bring notes. She didn't need them. Congresswoman Crockett, Morales began, her voice formal. You're here to offer testimony regarding classified operations possibly connected to Project Atlas Protocol. Is that correct? Yes, Jasmine said. What you shared today, Morales continued, may remain sealed depending on findings. You are under oath. Kay, proceed. Jasmine took a deep breath. Then she spoke. She began with the encrypted file she received labeled Colfax Witness Dossier. She detailed the connections between U.S. energy interests in West Africa and the silent cooperation of intelligence assets who suppressed whistleblowers. She mentioned the 2007 Lagos trial that was never acknowledged by any government. She named companies. She named agents. She named generals. And then she played the video of Leon Marshing, the one that ended with him walking out of frame and never being seen again. The room stayed silent for a long time. Senator Morales leaned forward. Are you saying the Atlas Protocol is not only real, but already operational abroad? Jasmine nodded. Yes, and the next step is domestic use. Proof. Jasmine placed the last file on the table. It contained classified contracts showing a beta test of Atlas in 2 U.S. cities, masked as cybersecurity drills. In both cases, court data was altered. Surveillance footage disappeared. In one incident, an entire trial was overwritten in the public database. The only record left was a printed copy stored in a lawyer's locked cabinet. Morales looked sick. Who authorized this? Jasmine hesitated. Then she said it. General Ernest Maddox. And it wasn't just him. She slid a page across the table. On it, a list of signatories, some still active. The room fell into a different kind of silence. Then Senator Rayburn, who hadn't spoken all morning, cleared his throat. Congresswoman, you've just accused 3 sitting officials and 2 former agency directors of treason. I've shown you the evidence, Jasmine replied. What you do with it is your call. Morales looked like she wanted to speak, but a sudden buzz broke the silence. Her phone? She checked it, her eyes widened. Then she stood. Everyone remained seated. That was the Capitol Police. Spin a breach, the lights cut out. In an instant, the room plunged into emergency red lighting. A security alarm began to wail in the distance. The guards outside shouted something Jasmine couldn't hear, but she saw Morales motion her toward a side door. Move. Now, Jasmine grabbed the files, her instincts sharp. In the hallway, everything was chaos. Emergency lockdowns triggered steel shutters across corridors. Men in plain black suits moved with calm precision to calm, not police. They weren't here to protect. They were here to contain. Morales shoved Jasmine into a freight elevator with Kita, who had just arrived upstairs after watching remotely in a safe chamber. Take this drive, Morales hissed, pressing it into Gita's hand. If we don't make it, publish it. All of it. What about you? Gita shouted. Morales didn't answer. The doors closed. The elevator dropped fast. Jasmine held the railing tightly. Gita was shaking, but she clutched the drive like her life depended on it. Because now it did. Outside, they emerged into a loading dock. 2 unmarked black SUVs were waiting. A man in civilian clothes motioned frantically. Go, get in. They didn't ask questions. The door slammed shut behind them. And as the vehicle pulled away, Jasmine looked back once. Capitol Hill stood in full daylight. But behind it, smoke rose from one wing. Not an explosion, not yet. But something was happening, something that couldn't be undone. Inside the SUV, Kita turned to Jasmine. "You're not safe anymore." "I was never safe," Jasmine replied. She took a breath. "We need to get to Geneva." Gita blinked. "Why?" The private jet cut through the clouds over Europe. Jasmine Crockett sat beside Gita Lau, watching as the coastline of Switzerland came into view. Neither of them had spoken much since takeoff. The encrypted drive was with Gita, wrapped in fabric and hidden beneath her coat. Jasmine kept her phone off. They were beyond the reach of headlines now. But not beyond danger. Geneva was neutral ground, officially, but they both knew neutrality was a mask. Everyone came to Geneva, the guilty and the righteous alike. Jasmine had arranged a quiet meeting through an old contact from her law school days, the man claimed. To know the last surviving codebreaker who once worked on the Vienna papers. They landed just before sunset. At the terminal, a black Peugeot waited. The driver handed Jasmine a phone, already connected. A distorted voice spoke. "To ours, Rue de la Paix. Bring no devices. Come alone." Then silence. The car took them to a quiet apartment Gita had rented under an alias. Jasmine opened, the windows letting in the sound of soft rain and distant trams. Geneva was calm, beautiful, but tonight it felt like a waiting room before history was rewritten. They changed clothes, left behind all electronics. Gita clipped a mini camera into her coat lining, just in case. When they arrived at Rue de la Paix, they found a small antique shop with its lights dimmed. Jasmine entered alone. Inside, a single man stood behind the counter, tall, thin, white hair slicked back. He was arranging old film reels. Jasmine recognized him from a photograph in the Echo Well dossier. His name was Adrian Fulch, former data forensics agent for Interpol, presumed dead after a fire in Berlin in 2011. "You're late," he said, without looking up. "I didn't know I was expected. You carry Leon Martian Spurden? That makes you expected." He gestured to a small door in the back. Inside, a private room, a projector, a stack of old documents, and one locked box. "I decrypted most of the Vienna papers years ago," Adrian said. "But there was a final segment, pages encoded using a numeric signature tied to trial witnesses from the Lagos sessions. Nobody could access them. Until now." He placed Jasmine's printed files from the Colfax witness dossier beside the box. "The names in your file match the original cipher. That means you've got the key." Jasmine leaned forward. "So, what's in it?" Adrian opened the box. Inside, a list of code names, linked to an international coalition of government officials, private security firms, and media companies. Together, they formed Narrative Directive 13, a covert alliance, tasked with reshaping news coverage, erasing trials, rewriting public records, and feeding coordinated stories to selected outlets. One section stood out: asset deactivation logs. It listed the silencing of whistleblowers from over a dozen countries, journalists, researchers, even judges. At the bottom of the page, Target 431, Crockett, Jasmine, status unresolved. Initiated 48 hours. Jasmine's pulse jumped. They knew. "They're moving fast," Adrian said. "You have 24 hours before this hits full lockdown." Gita entered quietly. She had seen enough through the coat cam. "We go public now," she said. "No red tape. We dump everything." "Worldwide," Adrian shook his head. "Not enough. This story dies in a Twitter cycle unless you tie it to faces people trust. Names, governments." Jasmine took a breath. "What if we go higher? Not just the files, but the reason behind them. What if we show how truth was sold, not just silenced?" Adrian smiled. "Then you'd need a stage." By morning, the world was already stirring. Reports of a security breach at the U.S. Capitol were trickling out, vague, contradictory. The official story claimed a systems glitch during routine maintenance. No mention of Jasmine. No mention of Project Atlas. No mention of the files. But all that was about to change. Gita coordinated a live global stream using secured lines, a platform built by rogue developers once blacklisted by Western agencies. Jasmine was about to speak, not as a congresswoman, not as a whistleblower, but as a witness. Her stream opened with 6 words. They told me I was unfit. Then she began to tell the real story, calmly, clearly, and without any spin. She spoke about the courtroom clash, the file that followed, the vanished trials, the rewritten databases. She named Roberts. She named Maddox. She named every agency and company on the list. As she spoke, subtitles appeared in multiple languages. By the 12-minute mark, 9.3 million people were watching. By the 30-minute mark, it reached 38 countries. And then Gita uploaded the full Vienna Papers archive, unedited, unredacted, live. Back in Washington, panic spread behind closed doors. Officials issued blank statements. Some resigned quietly. Some went silent altogether. But the damage was done. Within 3 days, hearings were opened in The Hague. An emergency session was called at the United Nations. Several governments launched internal reviews. And Jasmine, she didn't return to Congress. She didn't need to. Her voice had already done what legislation never could. She stayed in Geneva, working with a growing coalition of lawyers, journalists, and digital historians to build a new archive, one where stories couldn't be erased. As for Gita, her name became global overnight. She refused awards. She refused interviews. But she accepted one offer to train a new generation of investigative reporters. The last image of the story comes from an anonymous drone shot. It shows Jasmine Crockett walking through a crowd in Geneva. No security, no spotlight, just a woman among people as real as ever. In the caption, someone wrote below, she was never unfit. She was just too true for the world they built.